A people united. Charity. Sit down, comrades. Which have been on and on by every government in power. Subsidy seems to be now a cat that has 9 lives. Every government will announce subsidy, and the meaning of subsidy removal, according to them, is increase in price. We woke up suddenly to hear that subsidy is gone by Mr. President on the day of his inauguration, without a cabinet, without going to the National Assembly. And we were told that there was provision up to the end of June. And we wouldn't know whether there was vehement or adjustment. And why they invited us for a meeting by 2 p.m., they had the NNPC PLC, as a private company, went ahead to fix prices. And we are still wondering whether it is the function of companies who are limited liability companies to fix prices of petroleum products in Nigeria. And the level of increase brings much, leaves more to be desired, in the sense that the issue of subsidy has not been probed all these years. And for anybody to close that chapter is like covering fraud. The Nigerian Labour Congress has called the NEC members for us to interrogate some of these processes, to know who and who we are collecting the subsidy money. Very important. And how much they have collected, at least in the last 8 years. Because it is not enough to say subsidy or no subsidy. Because if the report we are getting on landing costs is correct, if landing cost is $30 per barrel.
President Bola Tinubu remains quiet and unshaken as electricity workers threaten to throw the entire country into total darkness. And Nigerian Labour Congress stands strong on its demand for the immediate reversal of the increased petrol pump price, says no to further negotiation with the federal government.
In the process of subsidy, to know those who are the beneficiaries, to know the amount that is involved, and to investigate it properly before it is swept under the carpet. That the current attempt to sweep the issue of the fraudulent practices in the subsidy regime should not be tolerated by all well-meaning Nigerians. That the NEC in session directed that the leadership of NLC should be cautious of negotiating with people without portfolio. That it is instructive that until a government is properly constituted and the people who will negotiate with labor are such people with mandate and capacity to commit the government of the day, such negotiations may not be valid wherever. Consequently, the NLC decided that if by Wednesday next week that the NNPC, a private limited liability company that illegally announced a price regime in the oil sector, refuses to revert itself for negotiation to continue, that the Nigerian Labour Congress and all its affiliates will withdraw their services and commence protest nationwide until this is complied with. And that NNPC doesn't have the monopoly to act illegally, even as a private company. The NLC NEC therefore directed all state councils and all industrial unions to commence mobilization from this moment to make sure that this action is enforced. Thank you, comrades, for being with us. God bless you.
President Tinubu has refused to say a word or take any action over the demand for the immediate reversal of the recently petrol price to over 500 naira per litre since his declaration of the end of the petrol subsidy era during his May 29, 2023 presidential inauguration speech. We learned that the Nigerian and other concerned groups in the country has registered a drastic increase in the price of petrol, which has caused more hardship for its citizens. Recall also that the Nigerian Labour Congress had, to this effect, given the President Tinubu federal government an ultimatum to reverse the petrol pump price or face a massive strike action on Wednesday.
Generator will not take less than 10 liters, and 10 liters cannot last a night. With this addition of about 3,000. And in the meeting, they were not only provocative, we saw the contempt at which they held Nigerians by saying they will give people 5,000 as palliative, and that they are going to give 5,000 for 50 million Nigerians, whom they call the poorest of the poor. But the Bureau of Statistics said that there are 133 million Nigerians that are multidimensionally poor. And that's what they told us. And maybe they will give it for 6 months or thereabout. There is no other condition, no provision. We looked at alternatives, which we discussed in 2021. Nobody wants to mention about the repair of refineries. All questions bordering around that were not responded to. Nobody responded to the issue of CNG, which we agreed that the vehicles could be converted within 3 months. No response. So it's like there's no alternative on ground. And one of them said it's a fiat accompli. So with this, that's why we have called you here, to brief you and to seek further directive on how to go about this. But let me say this. The propaganda will be on. The blackmail will be on. This matter has been on subsidy for the past 20 years. This is not a new policy of the NLC. This is not designed by this NLC. Subsequent NLC, previous NLC stands on this. That whereas
the NLC had last week held a meeting with the federal government, which ended in a deadlock, and on Sunday, shunned another meeting called by the federal government to discuss the subsidy removal. And the hike in fuel pump price across the country. The union insisted that it will not hold any dialogue with the government unless a legitimate team is set up. However, the Trade Union Congress, TUC, officially attended the meeting, which was a follow-up to the talk held by the NLC at the Aso Rock Presidential Villa in Abuja last week. It also ended in deadlock. The national president of the Congress, Joe Ajero, said in an interview on Arise Television, "Of what use is today's meeting as of the Tuesday night? I had a meeting with the president of the TUC and some other government officials. I told the NNPCL MD that any move to increase the pump price would be taken as well. They went ahead to announce. We told them to return to the status quo so the negotiation will continue, but up till now, they have not done that. So what are we going to the meeting to do? We are not making any progress because we are still at the same point. The issue of alternatives and subsidies are things we have discussed over time, and our position has been made public, but the government appears not to be interested in our position. The electricity workers have also vowed to join the strike and plug the nation into total blackout in the process against the removal of the fuel subsidy. In a notice issued on Sunday, the National Union of Electricity Employees, NUEE, threatened to join the strike action. Already, the NUEE has directed its members to withdraw their service nationwide. The NUEE, in a notice signed by the Acting General Secretary, urged its members to comply with the directive and stop work from the early hours of Wednesday.